Well, a Hamas delegation has left Cairo without a breakthrough in ceasefire negotiations, brokered by Egypt, by Qatar and by the United States. But the group says the talks have not collapsed and it will continue negotiating through mediators. Husam Badran is a member of the political bureau of Hamas and joins us now live. So, first of all, can we just clarify, if we could, first of all, your negotiating delegation has left the talks, but the talks will continue. How is that going to happen? And where?
In the name of Allah Almighty, at the beginning, the delegation of Hamas has left Cairo today to meet with the leaders of Hamas for more consultations regarding what's going on and regarding the recent round of talks in Cairo. It is clear that Netanyahu and the government of Israel are insisting on playing with all the parties, and they are not responding to the main demands, not only of Hamas, but of our Palestinian people, the necessity of reaching a ceasefire and the necessity of allowing the displaced people to go back to North Gaza and to go back to their homes, and allowing the humanitarian aid to go freely without conditions to the Gazans, and the reconstruction that will happen after the war. The occupation is refusing to accept these main demands of our Palestinian people.
OK. There is still confidence in the United States that a positive outcome can be achieved through these negotiations, and relatively soon. Do you agree with that optimism?
The American administration is not impartial and is not a fair mediator. The American administration is a partner directly with Netanyahu and his government in the war against our Palestinian people. The U.S. administration is supporting Netanyahu politically, militarily, financially, and on the diplomatic level through the U.S. Veto in the Security Council. That's why what is said by the U.S. administration are only mere statements without real will to stop the war or to reach an agreement, even temporary agreement. And the U.S. must practice pressures on the occupation, and it can do. The Americans practically are going parallel with the occupation, with the Israeli occupation. That's why their statements do not represent the reality.
What will it take for Hamas to agree to a ceasefire deal?
First of all, I need to confirm once again that we are not talking about certain requests for Hamas. We talk about the demands of the Palestinian people. We had consultations, we had coordination with the effective Palestinian powers, and consequently, the situations that we talk about during the talks are national Palestinian positions and not Hamas Palestinian positions. Today, we need to talk about direct ceasefire. We need to agree about the mechanism of a ceasefire. And the most important is to allow the displaced people to go back to the north of Gaza, and the necessity of allowing the humanitarian aid, medical aid, food to go everywhere in Gaza, to reach everyone in Gaza, particularly in the north. The north is facing starvation, as mentioned by every media outlet, and the occupation is putting a lot of obstacles in this connection. Allow me to remember you that starvation for the civilians, direct killings of the civilians, preventing the hospitals from providing the citizens with the health services are always the way that is opposite to the international agreement, and Netanyahu and his government must be taken to the courts.
It takes two, of course, to agree to a ceasefire, and Israel said that they stayed away from the Cairo talks because Hamas refused to provide a list of hostages who are still alive. Why did you not do that?
Discussions about this point is nothing to do or has nothing to do with the ceasefire. When it comes to the prisoners in the Israeli jails, this is also an important matter. We have more than 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli jails, and we need the world to know that some of them have been detained for more than 44 years without seeing the door of the prison. We talk about hundreds of women, and we have hundreds of men without even charges. That's why this is an important issue for us. And we consider now the top priority is to help our Palestinian people in Gaza to stop the destruction, to stop the genocide. And we need not to talk now about the details of the prisoners. Now we need to help the Palestinians in Gaza, and the occupation is refusing to give clear answers regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip.
Husam Badran, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Husam Badran, member of the Political Bureau of Hamas. All right, listening to that is Tamer Qarmout, who's Assistant Professor of Public Policy at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Tamer, good to have you with us. So Ramadan was the target deadline for a ceasefire. That will not now be met. It's pretty clear. Ramadan's going to, Sunday, Monday? It's coming on Sunday or Monday. So what's your sense of optimism or otherwise about the ceasefire happening?
Nick, personally, I'm not optimistic, but we still have a couple of days. Before Ramadan starts. Tonight there is an important meeting for the Israeli cabinet, and there also I think Hamas has returned the ball to the Israeli and the American side, so also they have to decide how to go on, to move on with this, because the pressure also is in Israel and the US as well. The international condemnation has peaked. The entire world is very tired with this war, and the question is, would the Americans green light the Israelis? Because now, if these negotiations officially fail or collapse, we don't have an official statement from the two sides yet to indicate this, then this means Israel has to enter Rafah. And so far, we know from American statements that they have refused or they're not in support of the Israelis entering Rafah. So let's see. Hamas has returned the ball to both the US and Israel.
So in a sense, Hamas is making a statement just by leaving Cairo?
Yes, of course.
Stating their position.
Yeah, of course, and I think it's it could be a smart move by them because they know also that they're not under pressure alone. We know the size of the disaster in the Gaza Strip, but also the Americans with the U.S. elections now is getting more momentum. All these counts coming from the U.S. showing that many voters have abstained, angry with the Democrats. So Biden administration knows this now. So will they bless or give a green light for Netanyahu to go in Rafah in a full military operation and start the big massacre, because we know most people are cornered Rafah? And that's a big dilemma for the Americans, and especially that them and the Israelis are really isolated on the international arena, in the UN, with all this building pressure. But it's a tricky situation. Israel has, we know Israel's military conduct. We know that Israel has crossed so many lines in this fight. Hamas at the same time is not in an easy position. The people are really suffering with the famine and all this destruction. So it's like the Russian roulette now. Who's gonna, so we're in this situation.
But it's pretty evident that it's not Benjamin Netanyahu's priority to get the captives released. And what do you say to those who think that he's just trying to undermine the talks? He's just stalling for time.
Well, let's listen to what the head of opposition said. They're angry and they're blaming Netanyahu of failing these negotiations. They accuse Netanyahu of lacking any will to do so, because and they say he could save these negotiations and allow give a chance for the 40 Israeli captives to be released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. But he's not doing this. And sadly, the Biden administration is also siding with Netanyahu on this, blaming Hamas. But the Israeli opposition is not blaming Hamas, it's blaming Netanyahu. So here we have these different opinions. But the Israelis, if we listen to the Israelis and their opposition, of course they have a different opinion, blaming Netanyahu, not Hamas on this. And that's interesting.
Israel say that that military pressure on Hamas is the best way to secure a release of the captives. And in fact, the only time there has been a release has been through negotiations, isn't it?
Yeah, but also many of the captives have lost their lives as well during these operations. So that's a big dilemma for Netanyahu. Unless he really considers them as a collateral damage and he's not able to say this to his own people. Like, you know, I mean, so it's not, Netanyahu is not an easy position as well. So I'm not sure, okay, so how far he will go with this military operation? Because the Rafah issue is the big, it's the elephant in the room. I mean, 1.5 million Palestinians cornered in a very narrow area near the borders. What are you going to do with them? I mean, how are you going to conduct a huge military operation with these people there? And one thing also, Hamas in these negotiations have requested or demanded the return of people to the north. So if he's not allowing people to go to the north and threatening with a major operation Rafah, I just wonder how is he going to do it? How?
Right. It'd be interesting to see what happens, as you say, over the next 48 hours. Tamer Qarmout, thank you.
My pleasure.